for his outstanding activities in research area, and she is the life member of Indian Philosophical Congress and life member of Akhila Bharatiya Darshan Parishad and life member of Bihar Darshan Parishad and life member of Uttar Pradesh Darshan Parishad. He is a prolific writer and she is a good teacher. On behalf of this institution, I welcome to our research person, Dr. Neeti Singh. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Now I request our resource person to deliver speech on gender equality. Madam, please.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, I'm Neeti Singh, Assistant Professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. And I'm delighted that the organizing committee invited me as a resource person in today's webinar. Although I feel I am not an authority in the subject area, yet I love to understand and talk about this particular notion called gender equality. So first of all, I express my heartfelt thanks to the Kendrapara Autonomous College, Kendrapara, Odisha. Principal Sir Dr. Rajendra Prasad Tripathi, Vice Principal Sir Professor Gopal Chandra Behera, UGC Coordinator Sir Dr. Pravakar Malik, Convener of the program Sir Dr. Devakanta Sarangi, and other members of the webinar committee, especially to Mrs. R. Smitaka for providing me this platform to share my ideas on a very sensitive and important issue like gender equality. So I'd like to share my screen with you all so that students can follow my words and understand the concepts in a better manner. So just give me a minute, please. Yeah, kindly let me know whether my screen is visible to you all.
No, not yet.
Wait a minute. Just give me a minute. Is it now?
Yes, now it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, let's start. The topic of my presentation of today's webinar is gender equality, a shared responsibility. As we all know that recently we celebrated the 8th of March as an international day, International Women's Day actually, a day with over a century of history and change behind it. It was originally known as International Working Women's Day, and its roots lie in the socialist struggle of the early 20th century rather than feminism. Although national days had been celebrated before 1911, and the 18th of March of that year marked the first International Day, following a proposal from German communist Clara Zetkin. So why are we here talking about gender equality? This is the question. And why all over the world such programs like webinars, conferences, workshops, activisms, etc. are being run for the cause of gender equality. So let's explore together. And yeah. So the very first question I'm going to deal with is why we have made gender equality a goal, and especially for sustainable development. Okay, the heading of this particular slide contains the term goal, and we know that a goal is always that thing that is not there, and we try to achieve that. It indicates that gender equality is not the reality now. So we have set it as our goal, so that we could achieve it in near future. So I have two prominent reasons. The first one is that we all notice, to more or less degree, that gender inequality is prevalent in our current society. It is an undeniable fact. And the second is, we also realize that this persistent gender inequality is not going to take us farther in our holistic development. So, we are now in great need of gender equality, and it is being recognized by the UNO to make it a real situation through our collective or shared efforts. The current social structure needs a change in it, and it is of great, I think, it is of gender equality basically, which we are now talking about. And therefore, United Nations Organization had set gender equality as one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which we are committed to achieving by 2030, wherein gender equality is placed on fifth. It is again divided into 6 small goals. Here, these targets set by UNO for establishing gender equality are shown here in this slide, and these are the targets I have taken as it is from United Nations Sustainable Development Goals under the head of gender equality. Bold and italics are done by me to emphasize some important terms. So let us see what these 6 targets are. The first one says, end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. Everywhere means worldwide, including our educational institutions. If any kind of discrimination is going on against women and girls anywhere in this world, we need to stop those discriminations by 2030. This is the first target. The second goal is about eliminating all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking, sexual and other types of exploitations. And we know that very well that girls, women, and children are the easiest prey for any kind of violent behaviors in private or public places. Girl child trafficking and sexual exploitations are some forms of violence against women and girls, and these must be stopped as soon as possible. So this is also one of the goals set by UNO. Domestic violence is one form of violence against women in their private sphere. So in the third goal, UNO appeals to eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriages, and female genital mutilation. In various parts of the world, still some harmful practices are being done, such as above mentioned ones. Even in our country, child, early and forced marriages are practiced in a hidden way. So fourth one says, recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies, and the promotion of shared responsibility within the household and the family as nationally appropriate. Why this point is needed? In our culture as well, men are not supposed to perform household chores. It is culturally not accepted and appropriate, so it is needed to make a new culture. There is no doubt that women hardly find any recognition and value for the domestic work and care they provide to the family. Their house chores are seldom considered as work contributed by them in the national development, although their domestic work is of national and global importance. That has already been proved in Ireland through a social experiment, when on 24th of October in 1975, Icelandic women went on strike for the day to demonstrate the indispensable work of women for Ireland's economy and society, and to protest wage discrepancy and unfair employment practices. So they proved that if women would take a day off, what could happen to a nation's economy and society? So their unpaid care and domestic work must be recognized. And simultaneously, men should also take equal responsibility in homemaking. The fifth point emphasizes on ensuring women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making in political, economic, and public life. It is still seen that women are kept aside when the matter of decision making comes. They hardly participate effectively in leadership, whether it is social, religious, political, economic, or related to any task found in public life. Although this is not the same case everywhere globally, it varies in different socio-cultural groups. It is not because they are being stopped by some external forces, but because of lack of opportunities and adapted ambience. This is also to be ensured that their full and effective participation and equal opportunities are being counted and recorded. The last one, this and reproductive health and reproductive rights as agreed by the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development and the Beijing Platform for Action and the outcome documents of their review conferences. It is also to achieve that the universal access of sexual and reproductive health along with reproductive rights are being preserved and served. Anyway, these are the targets set by UNO to maintain gender equality throughout the world. We must not forget that we are committed to achieving this goal for a better future tomorrow. But the fact is that the world we are living in is still doing gender discrimination, and we cannot deny it. So let us talk about the concept of gender discrimination. We will now see what is the meaning of gender discrimination. But before that, a brief definition of gender must be provided here. See, sex and gender are not the same. In general terms, sex refers to a person's physical characteristics at birth, and gender encompasses a person's identities, expressions, and societal roles. A person may identify with a gender that is different from their natal sex or with no gender at all. So, sex is biological or natural, and gender is socio-cultural. Now, what do we understand by the term gender discrimination? There are various types of discrimination done in societies, but what exactly this gender discrimination is all about? So, firstly, we should understand what it is not. Then only we should be able to understand it properly. So, let us take a hypothetical situation. Suppose that there are 100 students and they are given free choices to select between the disciplines such as biology and mathematics. If the 50-50 ratio was there of girls and boys, by their free choice, in the math section there are 5 girls and 45 boys, and in the biology section there are 5 boys and 45 girls. Is this a case of gender discrimination? Can we say that here in the class of biology and mathematics, gender discrimination is going on? Of course not. But why? Because nobody forced them to adopt any specific subject to study, but they selected one of their own choices. So here we can conclude that it is possible that gender disparity is there, but it is not always the case of gender discrimination. Some may object here by saying that it is also coming from the societal pattern that girls are suitable for biology class and boys for maths, and they learn it from their environment. But to show this case as one of the gender disparity and not of gender discrimination, it could be said that all the other factors were equal, and then also there was no discrimination done based on their gender. Then this is not a case of the gender discrimination. Then what is gender discrimination? It is that kind of discrimination that is done based on gender only, when other factors are equal, such as when we restrict one gender to function on a given standard pattern and they are not allowed to violate that pattern. For example, earning bread is a task attached to the male gender and cooking to females. Discrimination is done when a boy is being criticized for making food at home and girls are being restricted from going outside to play on the ground. Such discriminations are called the cases of gender discrimination. When we attach some works which are not biologically restricted at all to men or women, then we do discriminate between the genders. And what is the justification for this gender discrimination? There are some people who do this such things and they have their justification. So those people who discriminate between men and women have their justification that this gender is a fundamental natural difference because they are different and it is apparent. Such as men behave differently than women. Their way of walking, dressing, and presenting themselves are masculine. And they are certainly different from women who wear different dresses, makeups, hairstyles, feminine walking styles, etc. These are some visible differences that are seen in society and which differentiate men from women. So we have different patterns set in the society for both male and female genders, but there are not only two genders found in society. There are transgenders as well, and they are considered as the third gender. So mainly, there are three genders: male, female, and third gender. But they have different sexual orientations, such as straight, lesbian, gay, transgender, gender neutral, non-binary, agender, pangender, and queer, two-spirit, third gender, none, or a combination of these and so on. The list is long. And certainly, we are not here to discuss these in this lecture, so I'm not going into this debate. Now I clarify that gender is not a fundamental or natural difference, but a made one. Women are not born as women, but they were made to be one in the socio-cultural environment. Simone de Beauvoir, a very famous feminist existentialist philosopher, wrote in her magnum opus, The Second Sex, which got published in 1949, one is not born, but rather becomes woman. It indicates that a woman is not born as a woman, rather made in society. They are taught how to be a woman. The same can be said about man as well, isn't it? Of course. So, gender, unlike sex, is not natural, but a social, cultural construct, and hence not constant or unchanging, I conclude. It means biological differences in the sexes or physiology actually do not matter, and hence make no ground for any kind of discrimination against any gender. Then, what about the biological differences between males and females? Does not it determine the location, roles, and functions of social creatures in society? People who are in favor of some forms of gender discrimination take biological differences into their consideration, and they seldom count any other factors existing in rational animalistic societies. They think that human beings are naturally divided into male and female, so there always be a difference in their physical, mental, social, and other roles. Let's talk a bit about evolutionary psychology. We all have seen these strong impacts and influences of the Darwinian theory of evolution in almost all spheres of human lives. Biological evolution theory was the basic foundation for the theory of the development of societies, but it was just one factor involved in our development. Other factors are also there. We evolved not only biologically but also socially, economically, religiously, and many other factors were there. So our biological evolution is always functioning in the background. We have rising above biological factors, and we are not only biological beings. This biological factor is not unique in human societies, but the socio-cultural factors are. These factors are unique. Whatever we could have achieved till the date is not only because we evolved biologically, but because we could evolve psychologically, socially, religiously, and politically, in which there are many factors working side by side. So naturally, women as mothers have some tasks. Okay? Women have some tasks to perform, such as recreation, child rearing, feeding her baby, and all. We accept it. We cannot make the biological factors zero, but our societies must not accept them as the sole factor to run the societal pattern. If we are going to assign only this many tasks to women by saying that this is their only function and role in society, then we are doing something necessarily wrong. These notions of gender discrimination or gender equality are not all about women only. It's about men as well as other genders. No one's biological differences must not define and determine their locations, roles, and functions as social creatures in society. We can, of course, construct better social norms and patterns than these biological ones. So, biological differences did matter, but in the evolutionary history of society. And it can only explain how we evolved in this way, and nothing more than that. What I want to say here is that human societies are not only the result of merely biological evolutionary forces. Rather, it is consciously formed by the infusion of characteristics specific to humans in biologically evolved groups of sapiens. In principle, we treat everyone equally, but in practice, we still are discriminating among people in the name of gender, caste, class, ethnicity, religion, and so on. And that is the reason that oppressed class, ignored class, ill-treated class, exploited class, and many such classes like these get merged to come into the mainstream. And whosoever was weak, or at least considered as weak, got exploited in the history, such as women, children, poor, black people, minorities, etc. So here we come to human societies to look at the causes of gender discrimination and how we arrived here. How we arrived here actually, where half of the human beings had to fight for their natural or basic rights. To understand this, we need to see the factors, features, and values of human societies. Human societies are formed on the values of respect for others, for differences, understanding, and things like that. Better to see the social contract theory of Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau here, and the most important feature is the language we have. We can communicate well, though it might be said that the animals do also possess their languages, but it is not as varied as humans. So society came into the existence, as I believe, for the welfare of humans, including women. And societies prefer constant change for the betterment of their own. So basically there are two types of human beings. The first type is of those who believe that they know everything, like, or whatever they know. And the second type of humans is of those who know that they don't know. So the latter constantly reforms because they think that the best is yet to come. The collective mind is always ready to bring the best version of society. The reason behind this is our human mind, the unsatisfied Socrates. A satisfied pig can never evolve socially because they are satisfied in the given situation. Those who think that they know are those who embrace their primitive nature and do not allow anyone to interrupt in their personal or social businesses. So they prefer living in a herd with minimum changes. But this is not true with the latter type who construct the majority now. So we welcome the reformation of society whenever we realize that there is a need. So our rational capacity goes in a dialectical way. It is always in the form of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. No matter how satisfied the situation we are put in, we create an antithesis for the same. Hence, we require the synthesis. This is what we humans possess, and this reasoning capacity is unique in human beings. We keep reforming the social structure and patterns whenever needed. So, human society is a construct, and women, even if ignored, are part of human societies. It is not the case that women, slaves, labor class, or LGBTQ plus are not part of human societies. Society as a whole is being constituted by everyone who is born as a human being, without considering their sexes or genders. Simone de Beauvoir considered women as the second sex. This second sex was the subject of the private spheres, and the first sex, that is men, was a figure of public sphere or public domain. This is obviously a big debate. Society was, and even today, is divided into two spheres, private and public. And it is in practice since market and civil societies came into existence. Men were public figures, they were citizens and took part in state activities, businesses, trading and securities. They returned home, which was a private sphere, and another was with Others, among others, was his public life. Thus, men's life was divided into two spheres. In the public sphere, the first set got priority, where they could interact and work with the other units of the society for the betterment of the things which they didn't enjoy personal rights over. The public was not private. But second sex mostly got placed into private space. In the private sphere, they were supposed to do things that they could enjoy personal rights over. But at the same time, they were restricted to be in a private sphere only apart from having capabilities to intervene in public matters. Sadly, they were not allowed to appear in the public sphere unless and until it was unavoidably needed. So this whole debate is not a new one, consisting of a history of 1,000 years in which our human civilization got evolved. Here one can ask, what is the difference between personal and public spheres, and why one is unpaid and another is paid? So the reasons provided against such a question is that for public activities, we get benefited indirectly, but we can't claim personally on public domain. When we get paid, our rights got ended over there. For example, we can claim no rights in the public domain and hence cannot enjoy complete dominance over them by considering them ours. Our job is done when we get paid, and that's all. This is the reason behind paid and unpaid labor. In private spheres, what happens? We can claim our rights, my wife, my child, my home, etc. So we cannot leave our domain because we get fulfilled and satisfied emotionally there in our personal or private sphere. So, which is also part and parcel of our human existence. That is the reason, even today, many educated women are not ready to leave their spheres for the public. Again, many can raise questions against it by saying that since they are trained to accept this private sphere as their own, that is why they choose it over the public sphere. Anyway, this particular debate can take a giant shape, so better to leave it here. It is actually not difficult to see that in a true sense, the public sphere is the aspect of human life that forms society. The personal sphere is unitary. Everyone has their personal spheres, which alone cannot construct society. Society is being constructed by the public sphere with those functions and activities which are collective and shared. Therefore, those who were in the public sphere constructed society and social norms which later on identified as patriarchal, and it was quite obvious because they were the makers. So they made everything as per their male attitude and understanding, and unintentionally, they become biased towards their race. Basically, we all construct the society, but in the true sense, those are making society as a constituents who are in the or who are there in the public sphere, and those who are in the private sphere are not actually constructing the society. So now the question is, why women were not allowed to take part in the public sphere? Historically, anthropologically, and socially, we are aware of the fact that the initial rule was to run the society by the strong. Okay, so Darwin said it was survival of the fittest. Those who were physically strong and privileged got the opportunity to be the ruler. And due to some natural reasons such as menstruation, pregnancy of 9 months, breastfeeding, etc., women were taken as physically weak and vulnerable. Comparatively, men were strong. And if I would do some charitable interpretation here, I would take it as a means for the women's protection. They were put into the private sphere. This is how women came into the private sphere, which with a gradual process became the sole place they belonged to. This process takes generations and hundreds of years to get modified or changed. So since we have already understood what was the reason that we divided men and women into public and private spheres, now we would see what was the reason that this consciousness started taking place in human beings, that women are also capable and potential enough to be a part of the public sphere. And if needed, men also are allowed to look after the family while being in their private zone. So Francis Bacon gave this famous slogan that knowledge is power. Knowledge used to be a virtue in the Greek tradition, but Bacon came into the initial period of modernism, and after that, we all know that there was modernity all over the world. The greater impact of modernity upon society was that people started seeing reason or rationality as the core feature of human beings. And based on the faculty of the reason, this demand started taking place that all human beings are rational animals, including women. And if it is true, so they also must be given those rights which men were having at the time. So the reason is the factor that makes us human and not God, obviously. Before this era, society was run through physical power on the edges of swords, and after that, physical power plus the grace of God was accepted in the theocratic society, basically in the medieval era. But once there was the societal pattern where we were not giving due respect and place to reason, and physical power was important. So obviously, who were weaker by physique were protected in the society by providing them a secure private sphere. I don't believe that it was a conspiracy of men to cage women as they saw them as their most dangerous enemies or rivalries. It was done for the protection, safety, and security, where both women and children were kept in private and safe places. And it was not done at once, rather, it evolved with the time. So, in history, as well as in social and political philosophy, it is quite evident how societies took shape. And comparatively, we are less violent and less indulged in war and all today. So, in the modern era, society started recognizing the worth and value of knowledge, rationality, and reasoning. Intellectuals were influencing the whole society, which was limited to academia only in the Greek era, especially in the Socratic period. So knowledge, as we know, is in language. So language became the foundation for nation states. So when the social contract theory was introduced by Hobbes, he said that the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and barbaric. It is the state where there is a war of all against all. Since the human being has the capacity of reasoning, and they understood that this is not an ideal situation to live in, so they all made a contract and gave power to the Leviathan. So he recognized reason as well, and this supposition that each human being, including women, can know and understand things, opened doors for equal treatment of each human being. So power is in the reason. And when it was recognized that reason is also there in women, then only people started demanding equal rights, respect, equal treatment, etc. in the society. Okay, so it was possible only due to the recognition of reasoning and knowledge, which could be possessed by both men and women. But a long history of the kind of treatment women received made the self-perception of women solidified as exactly how she lived for long. Women thought this was their real essence, that they are emotional, compassionate, kind, caring, and polite beings. So, and they are like meant to be in the role of homemaker. Simone used to say that it is not a tragedy that men saw women in one role, rather women themselves made a self-perception that was by that of men. So, through universal suffrage that is a right to vote in political elections. So the slogans like the personal is political and political is personal, and many other movements like that, women came into the social upfront. Private is also part of society, said the second wave feminist Carol Hanisch, who is credited with the slogan the personal is political. And this was understood as the need of the society that this must be ended. This is a discriminatory division that puts women at the side. So, such a personal political dichotomy must be eliminated. But it is still persistent in societies in some ways. The real situation is that we cannot say that the state of women we assume is not yet fully incorporated. Reformation processes are going on, but we need much more effort to make this idea true, because It is expected by the collective mind, and it is indeed a collective responsibility. So through such lecture programs, we are all trying to make people aware about this gender discrimination, which is prevalent in our societies. And this is a bad habit of society that will go away gradually with our collective efforts. So let's not stop here. Social upliftment is going on for hundreds of years, and everybody now realizes that force is no longer a basis for political power, but the reason is. So the subjection of women is an essay written by philosopher and political economist John Stuart Mill. Mill argues in favor of legal and social equality between men and women. He writes that the legal subordination of one sex to the other is wrong in itself, and now one of the chief hindrances to human improvement. The subjection of women was published in 1869. And what was the legal status of women then? At the time that Mill wrote the subjection of women, women could not vote. A married woman was not a separate legal entity from her husband, and any property or money she owned came under his governance. This was years ago when Clara Zetkin raised her voice for universal suffrage. And in the time of Mill, it was widely believed that women were more emotional than rational and did not have the intellectual capabilities of men. So Mill argues that if women seem emotional, passive, or political, it is because they have been brought up to be so. In making this claim, Mill echoes Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women, published almost 70 years earlier. So Mill insists that until society treats men and women equally, it will be impossible to know the natural abilities of women or whether there are inherent differences between the sexes. So it is important to treat men and women equally. And gender equality was not an issue only female thinkers or activists were talking about or dealing with, but male prominent figures in history took the charge as well. And through their writings and decisions, they changed the scenario. So Mill's contribution is undoubtedly remarkable in this regard, and his utilitarianism also gave hope and courage to women. The time came when women started asking for all those privileges men were having. And it was a time when women started doing everything men were doing, and they claimed an equal share in all the public and private matters. But postmodernism and plurality came. Modernism gave us universal suffrage, but later on, through philosophical development in the continent, there was a postmodernism movement. Modernism gave us a well-defined pattern for respect, dignity, value, and all. It made women such an entity who wanted to be and behave like men. But postmodernism shattered such standard patterns by giving women a liberating power. And it said that if you are not on a standard pattern, then also you could be true and right. And this kind of liberating, statements which women received made them more confused about how to know who they were. So they needed to redefine themselves, and there again is a problem. The women had two things together, at least two options we can say. One was the pattern of thousands of years, and the second one was a desire to be like a man. So what and how she would understand and see herself? She certainly got confused about the essential nature of being a woman. She started asking herself, am I a man-like entity or a feminine one? The feminine crisis comes here. What is the meaning of being a woman? The desire of being a man-like figure was also destroyed, and she wanted to get detached from the patterns she was put on for ages. So she was facing an existential crisis. And women were now searching for their place in society. They come up with some ideas. And here we can take feministic movements into our account, that how their waves changed the ideological perspective towards feminism as well as towards the whole societal pattern. So one section held the view that we should take over the work and positions which are respected and fed by society and predominantly associated with men. It was mainly inspired by modernism, but it was there in a postmodernistic era as well. The other section wanted to push forward what it had become through long historical training as their identities and sought for gaining respect for that. They thought that what we were is what we are since time immemorial. So they just wanted to get respected, recognized, valued, and paid for the tasks they were assigned to. So care ethics get involved here. They started demanding value for their emotions, and they considered themselves motherly creatures, full of kindness, empathy, love, care, concern, and all. Some sections of the women revolted against all forms of men's patterns. Some were radical and thought that whatever men had done was wrong, and they became staunch critiques of man as such. So they started breaking the norms by saying that all the patterns set for men and women were based on wrong foundations. So all patterns are patriarchal and we need to break them. And again, also some propose that as male patterns of society are deconstructed and in a sense have failed, we need to redesign our society based on feminist values. Male patterns were destroyed and failed by postmodernism. So we feminists are like proposing a new pattern for society. So what they did, they proposed feminist values to reconstruct and redesign society. Male value systems and patterns are needed to come to an end. This was their ideas. And in female virtues, oppression, arrogance, etc. are not accepted. So the feminist pattern wanted to give men and women equal status and respect in society. And this is in true sense feminism. So actually feminism is not against men, but against a system that is based on inequality. After talking about all these causes and reasons behind gender discrimination, we are now in need of some resolutions which can eradicate this social curse from our society. So here are my suggestions. First of all, our perception must be changed. People have now started realizing, due to educational effects undoubtedly, that it is the need of the hour to eradicate gender discrimination. Empowered citizens create an empowered society, and just feel it. Once we change our perception, we can see the whole picture in a different outlook. We need to see that each gender constitutes human society, and the gender which is weak in the society makes that society comparatively weaker than the society in which all sections or genders are empowered, right? So gender equality along with the empowerment of all is needed. This is on the level of vision. The second important thing is cultural reform. This one is on the level of our behavior, that how we are taking things in the society. Culture is not what we carry through tradition, but it is what we do in present without feeling any restrictions in society. So we need to shape our culture in such a way where gender equality is being ensured, that a person must not be recognized as a man or woman, but as a person. The culture making process is a literally complex idea. We can only do this with equal participation and the shared responsibility of men and women at all places in the public spheres, so that the biological, historical, or psychological factors may not dominate the perspective towards any specific gender. For example, if 5 people are selected in an interview and 4 are women and just 1 is men, we should stop gossiping that it is a partiality against men. They are people, they're persons, and whosoever will be capable enough will get the opportunity in the form of a job or anything else. So we should stop seeing people as men or women, but as a person. All the privilege, pride, and attention must not be given based on gender, no matter whom we are giving this to, whether to male or female. So it is all a kind of gender discrimination on the psychological level. So next is institutional and structural reform. It is also a necessary factor to empower women as well as all those who are being discriminated against at any point in society. So if women or any other group of the society for any reason do not get equal opportunity, then the reason is the unavailability of required facilities and ambience in the society for their growth. It simply means we are not giving them equal opportunities, and it doesn't always require stopping them from the fun. If like our institutional or structural pattern is gender biased, then indirectly gender discrimination is practiced, such as the availability of public toilets for women and physically challenged people. Okay, so my last suggestion is in the favor of affirmative actions for oppressed genders, especially women here. Now the time is to give women their space so that they can get to know each other, they can create the groups of their interests and like-minded people, like men used to have discussions in coffee houses and all. Some affirmative actions are required here. We are not only like negating the bad things, but also inculcating something new. So women need to define their role in society and identity as a person and not as a gender. They can come up with various functions attached to them as a part of society. So lastly, I would conclude that the old Indian philosophical traditional standpoint that we have against any form of gender discrimination is self is not gendered. And if it is accepted that the self is not gendered, so there is no question of gender inequality. But this notion is not going to help us in practical life, right? Because the problem is very much socio-economic. So the resolution must come from social change. Only grand narratives won't work effectively here. So I'll say that metaphysical solutions are not enough to tackle the social problems. Like Nancy Fraser gave the slogan of recognition, representation, and redistribution. We should start taking initiative to stop the discrimination by recognizing the issue and representing the suppressed class and distributing the share they deserve. So the solution is social and economical, not metaphysical. So in a just society, genders must not raise a wall between them. Okay, because both male and female, they are two sides of the same coin. So men for women's liberation and vice versa. Everyone should have faith in this, that such changes are going to be beneficial for one and all. It will be a win-win situation for both men and women if gender equality will come and will be established properly in the society. So nobody is going to lose anything. Gender sensitization is highly needed and it must be started from the family. So everyone should teach their children not to discriminate among genders or sexes, but it is possible only when children will encounter the same in their family and later on in their society, educational institutions, and workplaces. Once you are committed to doing that, you can. And if we borrow the style of Immanuel Kant, we can say, we ought, therefore we can. Thank you so much to all of you for your patient listening.
Thank you, madam, for your nice presentation. Now I will request all my participants, if any question for discussion, they may ask. Now all are requested if they can raise questions in this context. Any question from anyone?
Then I have a question to my audience. May I ask, sir?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I'm giving a riddle to all of my audience and you have to solve this. Once what happened, one father and son was going somewhere in the car and unfortunately they met with an accident and the father died. So some people took the son to the hospital and there in the hospital, the doctors saw the son and said, "Oh my God, I cannot treat him. He's my son." How is it possible? Solve the puzzle, give me the answer, how it happened. Very good. I got an answer from Rupesh. Definitely, You know what happened when such questions are asked? Many people thought that the son was having two fathers, or maybe the first one was not his real father, the second one was confused and all. Very few people thought, or very few people think that doctor could be a woman, and she could be his mother as well. So such types of riddles were being experimented in those eras when people were not used to see women in public spheres, when people were not ready and welcoming to see women as doctor, lawyers, pilots, and in defense services and all. So it's okay. Thank you so much, Rupesh, Kasturi, and Sangamitra, for your answers. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions from anybody?
Ma'am,
Rupesh.
being egalitarian on the expense of cultural and traditional demolition is good, but up to which extent can it be justified?
Up to which extent it is
Can it be
justified?
justified?
See, equality, when we talk about, okay, in my personal opinion, how I take these terms, when we talk about equality, sometimes it is unjustified, and it is very much clear. Okay, when we provide everyone's equal rights, equal opportunity, equal things, equal stuffs, everything is equal, then it becomes a kind of, like a situation where everything is not just or not good for many people. Like if I'm having a lot of appetite and I have some more hunger than my siblings, then I must get some extra food. Okay, so people think that equality is not a good term or better term to use when we want to have a, like a society where everything is just. So many people used to like coin the term equity here, that equality is not needed, equity is needed, and we should practice equity instead of equality. So I really am here with that point, that when we say equality, it is not about giving the same things in same amount in same way to everyone. Even all boys are not equal. So how could we demand for such a thing that we want to be equal to men? No, there will be some differences, and this is good. This is not bad. Okay, equality here means that if we want to have a society which is gender like which is based on gender equality and there is no gender discrimination, it means we are all having the proper facilities, proper opportunities, and proper treatment, proper respect, and equal respect. So that is all I can say. And yeah, your point is correct that each time it is not justified, so equity must be practiced. But the sense is that there in the term equality as well, the term can like refer something else, or in a very etymological sense it has a different meaning, but it is taken basically or fundamentally in that sense only, where we talk about equity and all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone? Himanshu? Anyone? Hello? Anyone? I'm also.
Good evening, madam, and good evening to all participants who have participated in this seminar, and our respected and revered honorable principal sir, Ranjit sir. We are fortunate enough to have a such wonderful talk is delivered by our resource person, Dr. Neeti Singh, who elaborates us on different aspects of gender issues and gender equalities. His points were on highlighting the UN goals for gender equality and also on public and private aspects of gender, Miller's on gender, then postmodernism and plurality on gender issues, weak women and empower women issues regarding the gender, and her suggestion regarding the gender issues, how can we eradicate such problems in our societies and how to change our perception towards genders in the society, and her suggestion was based upon the change of perception, cultural reforms, institutional and cultural reforms. All those things are added much more knowledge capabilities to our participants, and also great learning experience for our institutions. And on behalf of my institution and also on behalf of all participants, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the madam for providing us such opportunities and time for delivering her talk, and also accepting our invitation as a resource person. And at last, now I request Professor Ranjit Kumar Das of our institution to extend vote of thanks for this talk or webinar. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Esteemed Principal Dr. Rajendra Prasad Tripathi of Kendrapara Autonomous College, Kendrapara, esteemed Dr. Neeti Singh, as Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras in the university, and all participants. I am very much fortunate to propose the vote of thanks. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Neeti Singh, who not only accepted our invitation, but also spent our valuable time to express all direction and all things about the gender equality. I think it will be fruitful for all the participants joining the webinar. I would like to thank our Honorable Principal, Dr. Rajendra Prasad Tripathi, who inspires us to arrange such a nice webinar. I also thank to Dr. Devkan Sarangi, who is in the charge of this gender equality of our college, and he has taken enough help to organize this webinar. I also like to thank to our UGC coordinator, Dr. Prabhakar Malik, and NAT coordinator, Dr. Ganendra Das, who inspires us to arrange such a webinar. And also thank to Himanshu Mahapatra and Prasant Kumar Sahu,
Yes. Smita Kaur.
and Arjasmita Kara, who are the members of our the gender equality section.
Okay.
Gender equality section, and they have provided the technical support to arrange this webinar. And also I thank to all the participants, my colleagues, friends, who have joined this meeting, who have joined this webinar, and fulfill their courage, and also this webinar is helpful to all of us. I think this webinar is a very much fruitful. I once again thank to all for attaining this webinar. Thank you all.
Now the webinar is over. Thank you, madam. On behalf of myself and on behalf of this institution and to all my
Thank you
participants.
so much,
Thank you.
Bangalore.